All right, let's get right into it. The Saga of Frenzy. It's one of those stories that's so much more than just a story. On the surface, it's an epic tale. But when you look closer, it's this incredible deep dive into the very nature of existence. We're talking about free will, the struggle for identity, and, well, the strange, seductive pull of nothingness. So, let's unpack this thing together.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll set the stage with the main conflict, this war for the soul. Then we'll get to know the two absolutely central figures, the wild, chaotic jester and the eerily silent puppet king. After that, we're going to see how their dueling philosophies spread through their followers, which is fascinating. And finally, we'll get to the real heart of it, what the saga says about the biggest battle of all, the one that happens inside ourselves.
Okay, so first things first, you have to understand this is not your classic good guy versus bad guy story. Not even close. What we're actually watching is a massive collision of ideas, a war over what it even means to be a person, to be free. And that's really the key. The stakes here are absolute. We're not talking about a fight for a kingdom or a crown. This is a battle for the very operating system of the soul. The two figures we're about to meet, the Jester and the Puppet King, they each offer a path, and there is absolutely no middle ground. It's an all or nothing choice. This right here, this slide just lays it all out perfectly. On one side, you've got the Jester. He is all about the messy, chaotic, and yeah, sometimes agonizing struggle of constantly creating yourself. He's what some philosophers would call the absolute I, the self that exists purely because it has the will to. But then you have the Puppet King, and he offers the total opposite, a quiet, peaceful escape from all that struggle, the peace of simply not being. He's the absolute not I. So it really boils down to this, the pain of becoming something versus the seductive comfort of becoming nothing. So let's start with him. Let's really dig into the Jester, or Der Grün Goldnar. This guy is basically the prophet of self-creating chaos, and his whole deal is the idea of eternal, non-stop becoming. The Jester's entire power comes from this one incredibly defiant idea, the absolute self. He doesn't need a king, a god, or history to tell him he's real or that he matters. He is sovereign because he says he is. He simply wills himself into existence, and that act of will is his crown. It's an unbelievably aggressive form of self-assertion. And check this out. His so-called weapons aren't for fighting people. They're for destroying ideas. His main tool is laughter, a kind of active, weaponized laughter that he uses to just shatter old, heavy traditions, what Nietzsche called the spirit of gravity. His chipped axe, that's his way of saying, I'm not your typical hero. It's a rejection of that whole warrior myth. And the rattle in his hand represents the constant, joyful creation of new values, like a child who sees the world for the first time. What's so amazing is that this whole philosophy is written right onto his body. He's split down the middle. The tarnished gold side, that represents human ambition, the lust for power and legacy, all the things he sees as just another kind of cage. But the other side, the verdant, overgrown side, that's the raw, chaotic truth of nature itself. It's entropy, the simple fact that everything we build, everything we strive for, eventually just returns to the soil. He's a walking, talking paradox. How cool is that? So, if you're going to remember one thing about the Jester, remember this. For him, sovereignty, being truly in charge of yourself, isn't about reaching the top. It's about the climb itself. It's this relentless, agonizing, but also joyful ascent up a mountain that has no peak. The struggle is the entire point. Okay, now let's do a complete 180. If the Jester is all about the glorious pain of the climb, the Puppet King, Gebetsche Schatten, is that quiet, tempting voice in your head that just says, why bother? Just stop. Let it all go. This is the seduction of non-existence. See, Gebetsche Schatten isn't really a person, not like the Jester. He's more like a vacuum, a black hole that's formed from everyone's repressed fears, from the Jester's own shadow. He is the void made manifest. He is the ultimate resistance to the Jester's will to create. And this is his gospel. This is the promise he whispers. He teaches that this constant struggle to be someone, to have a self, is just a terrible burden. And real freedom, that only comes when you finally stop trying, when you let your will just dissolve. It's a terrifying thought, but man, you can see how comforting it would be. His whole philosophy is basically what you could call the peace of the cemetery. The end goal is the final sunset, a world without conflict, without change, a quiet museum where everything is perfectly still. And how do you get there? You just have to give up that troublesome I. You surrender your identity and become a perfect silent object. And in return, you get the ultimate promise, freedom from the terror and the responsibility of being alive. It's chilling, for sure, but also deeply seductive.
But a philosophy of nothingness can't just spread on its own, right? It needs agents. And the Puppet King has two totally different kinds of followers, and they perfectly represent the two faces of nihilism. One is slow and passive, the other is fast and active. So first up, we have the slow burn path to the void, brought to you by the Tarantula Preachers. This is what you'd call passive nihilism. It's not a big explosion. It's a slow, creeping decay born from weariness, from resentment, and from a deep-seated desire for nothing to ever change.
And their method is just pure psychological warfare. They spin these webs of guilt to convince people that ambition, wanting to be more, is actually a sin. Then they take a noble idea like equality, and they twist it. It stops being about lifting everyone up and starts being about tearing down anyone who dares to stand out, anyone who tries to climb. It's all about enforcing stagnation to protect their master's silent kingdom. And then you have the other path, the fast one, the violent one, the all-consuming fire of active nihilism, and it's embodied by the absolutely terrifying Red Judge. He is a dark, twisted reflection of the jester's own impulse to tear things down, but without any of the joy or creativity. The Red Judge operates on a logic he calls sovereignty based on zero. Think about it. Once you've destroyed all meaning, once you realize all values are just made up, what's left? For him, what's left is nothing, zero. So he no longer bothers with ideas like innocence or guilt, right or wrong. There's only one distinction that matters to him anymore: what is burning and what is not yet burning. And that's the horrifying endpoint of his philosophy. The entire world, all of existence, is just fuel. Fuel for a fire that burns for no reason at all. Not for light, not for warmth, just for the sake of destruction itself. It's the will to power completely stripped of purpose, a pure nihilistic inferno. Which brings us to the climax, the final confrontation. With these two massive forces of nothingness arrayed against him, the saga finally reveals its ultimate statement on how you're supposed to stare into the void and not blink. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, how do you actually fight an enemy whose very nature is emptiness? The jester's greatest weapon, his laughter, it's totally useless here. It just gets swallowed up by the silence. So what does he do? And this is the saga's most brilliant, most profound twist. The jester has a breakthrough. He realizes the Puppet King is just a symptom, a shadow cast by a much deeper sickness. So he doesn't try to climb higher or laugh louder, no. He decides to go deeper. He descends. He finally understands that the real war isn't against the void out there, it's against the poison within. The final battlefield isn't some castle or field, it's the underworld of the blood, the poisoned ancestral history of his own will to exist. He realizes that to truly defeat nihilism, he has to go all the way down into his own foundations, confront the inherited rot, and remake himself from scratch. And that's where this saga leaves us, with this huge, lingering question. It seems to suggest that maybe the greatest enemy we'll ever face isn't some dark lord or external threat. Maybe the real enemy is the doubt, the fear, the inherited poison that corrupts our own will to live. So I'll just leave you with that thought to chew on. Where is your final battle really being fought?